Royal greetings to you, my beings of Mama Earth. Yours truly here, Her Highest Imperial Majesty, Shastra Trinity, also known as Ternicka Mahabal, Primordial Sovereign Diplomats, Amerindian, American, Temukan, Carib, Muur, as well M-U-U-R, as well as I also use M-A-U-R-E-N to represent my American connections to my foremother Europa as well too. Okay, so lineage of Bathsheba Solomon as well as Europa Simmons. And as I have mentioned earlier, I was speaking about, with the landmass here on Alubera, which is Misnomer, Tobago, we've had a lot of appellations throughout the seasons of civilizations that actually has, passed throughout our motherland here, okay? So we've had these occurrences through civilizations and appellations as we go. So Alubera, which is the indigenous appellation, I spoke on the circumstance regarding who we are as our identity as a people, and it's very much important. I have had the experience of actually observing and being a part, as well as also sharing the experience with my relatives surrounding the Tobago heritage. However, with everything that has been occurring in my observations, I have realized that there isn't the inclusiveness of the indigenous peoples. Okay, so what is going to be done is the restoration of who we are as the first peoples, the First Nation and First Peoples, the indigenous peoples. We have the Kalinagos, we have titles, and we have our rich culture and identity. We are the foundation before any form of enslavement and colonization by the British and Spaniards. And something else that needs to be corrected, something that has been a very much misclassification across the board, even in the educational spaces, have been where they misclassify and mix up Europeans with British. Europeans and British folk are different beings, are different people. All right? So Spaniards and British colonized and they human trafficked African people as well too, came across to the landmass here on Alubera as well as other landmasses throughout the Caribbean, all right, for their slave trade, and it was their business mechanism with the plantations. Okay, so let's speak on Charlottesville, all right. My foremother, whom Charlottesville is named after as well too, Queen Charlotte. As in, when I say foremother, she's a mother and also a relative, all right? Yes, Charlottesville we've always had my Amerindian people there. We've had the Kalinagos as well as the Arawaks, throughout the spaces, as even included Starwood, Hermitage, all of that point ratio throughout the entire land space have had my indigenous First Peoples, as well as we are responsible for even giving the appellations to certain communities, all right? Regardless of the plantations that would have been here, the plantation estates that came after and stole it from the indigenous peoples, okay? So the indigenous peoples were always responsible for certain things. We had our own food that we planted. We had our own way of spirituality. We had our own way of how we would deal with our family structures and so on. And many of these things are not included or incorporated in the Tobago heritage. So regarding Tobago on the whole, we need to be mindful of that. So to beings who are dealing with culture, all right, so to the beings who are dealing with the culture, as well as who is responsible in the sector of tourism, and every other being regarding the festivals and all these things, all parties, as when I say party, all representing spaces and groups that contributes to this whole fundamental needs to be aware of this. All right, so as I said, as the Carib Queen, Sovereign Governor General as well too, it is of great importance to restore the indigenous truth on our landmass and it is in the protection of who we are from the foundation, okay? It's very much important. So to have us not respected and honored in that light and retrospect and take who we are and portray us as who we are not is also very much disrespectful, okay? So the other retrospect of everything else throughout the whole landmass on a whole, I've realized that not much is being done with the whole respect and honor of the indigenous peoples. So regarding this, I know that we all at some point have actually gained some knowledge throughout your schooling about indigenous peoples, about the Amerindians. I'm sure that if you have read the West Indian readers, there are other books as well too, which would have had the mention of indigenous peoples. So to be in this adult stage now in the present notion and still show an ignorant mind intentionally is very much, it shows like a malicious intention to colonize now who we are, or identity, or traditions, or law as well, and or even our own constitution as the first peoples. It comes as a colonization to us now, okay? Because I know, in truth, that every single being who attended schools on the island here of Alubera and Kairi, which is Misnomer, Tobago, and Trinidad, have had that bit of wisdom stored in their brain, in their mind, in their level of consciousness, where they do remember that, hey, yes, the first peoples are the foundation peoples of the landmass, the primordials. We are the primordials. So today, on this date, to still be like a blind eye is like, you see the letters you may receive from different indigenous groups and the representatives. They would write to you. We would speak on our platforms. We would share enlightenment and inspiration in the form of education. We continue to educate ourselves in our liberated justice and honor because it is who we are. We have always been the warriors to protect the landmass of the Caribbean as well too. We are beings, we are Atlanteans, Lemurians, all these retrospects of royalties. So the whole address is to ensure that, not just to ensure, to demand and declare that, hey, in this present now, we need not to be so ignorant and docile to each other in the scope of, a separated goal and aspiration from the whole order and assignment to ensure that we do rise in abundance and prosperity together. All right? We ensure that our people are fed. We ensure that every single being is in a shelter. We ensure that our people are able to afford liberty as well too, instead of increasing and making dormant the ability to grow, instead of decreasing the livelihood of a prosperous and less stressful and tense environment. So it needs to be addressed and fixed. So a circumstance otherwise is where exploitation is a bit over the top. It's overdone and it needs to stop now. So this indigenous court here, the first indigenous court that is established here on Alubera, is something of great importance as well too. Because here on Alubera, the Kalinagos and the Tainos and Arawaks, whomsoever have been the indigenous tribes active here, have always been the resilient beings and leading in that resilience of security as their, protection sees fit. Okay? So to the beings there in these spaces, it's not disrespectful to any other tribe members, to African people. There's no disrespect at all. The disrespect is on the ignorance and the refusal to accept or to even operate in the honor of ensuring that everything that occurs on this landmass should be inclusive of the indigenous peoples. So we are restoring everything that has been stolen from us, or land, or estates, or wealth, or identity, or traditions. And many has been stolen, and now we return it to ourselves in respect of our ancestors and the Most High. So much love, much love, much love.